On Wednesday, January 18, 2017, the Washington Wizards beat the Memphis Grizzlies 104-101. Golden State trumps over the Oklahoma City Thunder 121-101. Thursday, January 19, 2017, the Washington Wizards beat the Knicks 113-110. On Friday, January 20th, 2017, the Philadelphia 76ers with a big-time game winner from Robert Covington in a win over the Portland Trailblazers 93-92. Here is the game-winning call.
Sixers need a 2 to tie, a 3 to go ahead. Covington for the lead! Yes!
One of the biggest shots of the year for the Philadelphia 76ers as they have been playing well as of late. Again, the win over the Portland Trailblazers, 93-92 there. Brooklyn destroys the Pelicans, 143-114. The Golden State Warriors over Houston again, 125-108. And on Saturday, January 21st, 2017, the Detroit Pistons over the Washington Wizards, 113-112. Marcus Morris over his brother in the game-winning tip there in the winner.
Into the corner, Harris's shot is blocked. Gets it back, shoots and misses. Tip is up and in at the buzzer.
Wow.
It counts, and the Pistons have won the game.
Huge game there for the Detroit Pistons as they get back on track and get a victory there over the Washington Wizards. Houston beats Memphis 119-95. Spurs over the Cavs in overtime 118-115. And the Bulls beat the Sacramento Kings 102-99. And on Sunday, January 22nd, 2016, the Dallas Mavericks absolutely destroyed the Los Angeles Lakers 122-79. And also follow those wiper-worthy performances for Week 12 and Week 13 on NBALead.com. Welcome on back to the show, everybody. Again, episode 23 here on the Hoopers Log. We got a special guest here on old time's sake. Man, this guy, him and I, Johnathan Wagner, we did some pretty special things during college basketball during March Madness last year and also talked some big-time playoff basketball about a year, last year in 2016. And it's good to have him back on. John, how's it going, man?
Great, man. Good to be back on the show with you again. It's been a while.
It has. It's been some time, a little different format, obviously. You're still a Knicks insider, and you're doing Hofstra basketball for NY Sports Day, correct?
Yep, and it's pretty much the same for both. They both can score, and neither can play defense.
Hey, there you go. That's pretty accurate on that stand there. You're also a former Yahoo Sports contributor and a Hoops Habit writer as well. Look, man, it's been since the finals, I think, since we've talked. And you mentioned before we got here on the air how we're already at the halfway point of the season. I mean, some of the headlines at this halfway point, what has struck you so far to this point halfway through the season?
Well, I mean, starting with the Knicks here, I think a lot of people had expected more from them. They going into the season, I think, with them more than any other year. Past years, you pretty much knew what they were going to be. This year, because of all the issues with maybe the health of Derrick Rose, and which is basically held up, and also with Noah and some of the other moves they made, they added 10 new guys. So you kind of, with all the moves they made, it was kind of had a really high ceiling if everything went right, and they kind of had a low floor. So it was a big gap more than other years. And I think, I had it going in that if everything went perfectly for them, they could get maybe as high as a 3 seed. And if everything didn't, well, they'd miss the playoffs. And that's kind of how they're headed right now. I mean, other than that, I think in the East, though, I think, you had 6 teams win at least 48 games last year. And a lot of teams also made moves that were among those teams. Obviously, what you're going to get from Cleveland and Toronto, and they're sitting where you expect them to be right now in the top 2 spots all year. But after that, the three through maybe 6, 7, even 8, a lot of teams made some moves, and you didn't kind of know what to expect. But you kind of thought that some other teams would take steps forward off of last year. You're only starting to see it recently now. Boston's kind of catching fire, and Atlanta. Atlanta's a weird team. That's one thing with me in the East too that I don't understand quite, because they got off to such a good start. They were 9-2. I think they went 6-14 after that. Now they're getting hot again. So that's just a strange team, the way they're going through runs in a season the way teams go through runs in games. So that's just weird to see that. But you would think that other teams would kind of take the teams that won the 48 games last year or more other than Cleveland and Toronto, would have taken that next step, making the moves that they made. And a lot of them kind of haven't done it yet, but still time to go. Washington had a slow start, but they're kind of getting hot lately.
Right.
The West, I mean, you're getting what you expected. I don't know if people expected Houston to be quite this good. Yeah, we thought they'd be good, but to be 34-13 right now, 2 games behind the Spurs, I mean, they're just doing an incredible job there. And I got to kind of, I guess, maybe eat some crow with some of the things I used to say about Mike D'Antoni when he coached the Knicks here in New York. So, but he's doing a good job. And I think the Blazers, and not in the playoffs right now, that's a little bit disappointing for them, but still some time left. But and of course Russell Westbrook, what can you say about him? If he becomes the first one since the Big O to average a triple-double, only the second one ever to do it. Obviously something to keep an eye on this year.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is you mentioned Portland there. Before we go to the Knicks conversation, you mentioned Portland there. This is, I think, what we expected Portland to look like after the 2014-2015 season when they lost 4 of those 5 starters. I think this is exactly how they should be. I mean, not to say that what they did last year was overachieved, but when you look at the way they're playing this year, I thought this was more of a reasonable and rational way. Seeing the way they're playing now was what I thought they would play like last year, if not a little bit worse. And they're actually back to that normality, if you could say that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what they've done, what they did last year, like you said, and the way they surprised, and now they're back to where they are, kind of falling back this year, 19-27 right now. There's no other conclusion to come to than to say this is kind of what we expected, and last year they just really overachieved. So I'm not sure why that is. The NBA can be funny sometimes, but everything just clicked for them last year, and this year it's just not clicking. I think some of the defense, kind of some of the problems that the Knicks are having, they kind of giving up a lot of points in a lot of these games, maybe more than you expect. And you don't play defense in the NBA. It's very tough to win.
Well, a lot like the Knicks, I was guilty of thinking that Portland would add on to what they did last year and improve and actually get better from the standpoint of just overall meshing and chemistry. And with the Knicks, I'm still on that same. I know it's probably tough where you're sitting right now, but I was on that bandwagon walking into the season saying, hey, they're going to have their lumps and their bruises and their bangs. Well, at this point, they have had a lot more than that, and I still think that if they can find a way to just keep it together for now, just find a way to keep that ship intact, find a way to get past the All-Star break, settle their differences, and start playing basketball and gelling, this could be a team where, again, they threaten for that playoff spot. I'm still on that bandwagon. Are you?
I was early in the year when they were 14-10. Everything was looking good. Hornacek was pushing all the right buttons. He would try all different combinations. He would throw like 4 Euro guys out there at once, and it would all click and work and everything. And it seems like, I don't know if it's just that he's not pushing the right buttons. Again, it's some of it, but maybe what he was trying in the past, the same guys are just not producing like they were earlier. So that's a little bit of it. The big moves that he's made, especially with Noah, have not really worked out as expected. It's the smaller moves, like Kuzminskis and Hernan Gomez, those types of guys, even maybe Jennings and even Holiday. Those have been the pleasant surprises. So Phil's kind of hit on the smaller moves. It's the bigger moves that so far have not worked out, not really gelled the way he thought. The problem is time's running out. I mean, tonight's game number 46 for them already. It goes fast. The All-Star game is not far away. Once you get past that, it flies to the end of the season. And if they don't turn it around, they're 7 games under. They had a big comeback in this first half tonight at Indiana. They were down 12 after 1. They took the lead by 4 at the half. So if they could get this game, get to 6 games under, maybe they can make a bit of a run. But you lose this, you're 8 games under 500. I believe that would be their low water mark of the season. And that's very tough to overcome. I mean, now the East, obviously, the way it is, they're only 3 games out of a playoff spot, but the 8th seed is not going to do anything for them. It's just going to be a sacrificial lamb for Cleveland. So if you don't get to at least a 6 seed maybe, you're not going to have much. Realistically, even a 5 seed to even have a chance to do any damage in the first round. It's not looking like that's going to happen for them right now. It seems like another, mid-30 type of win season for them.
with what happened on Thursday night against the Washington Wizards with Sidney Lowe, can you give us a perspective on what happened locally and how people were reacting to that situation on Thursday night?
You know, what I can only go by what I've said. That was one. I covered a lot of the games at the Garden. That was one game that I didn't cover, so I caught that one on TV. And so I was only going by the Twitter reaction afterwards. And you know, there's really two different camps. There's the Melo supporters and the Melo detractors.
Yeah,
That's just how it is here
yeah.
in New York.
Oh, yeah.
And that game was not the game to be a detractor of Melo. I mean, I don't know what more the guy could have done. Everyone was talking about the last shot at the end. You know, he scored 34 points. Well, actually, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the
I
latest
thought you were
loss.
kind of mixing them up. Yeah.
Sorry about that. But I was thinking about that one. But even that one too, same applies. You know, I don't know what more he could have done in that game. The shot went in and out, and they lost. The Washington game, you know, 34 points, 10 rebounds in that game. Same kind of thing. You know, it's the same thing with that. It's been their problem all year. It's great that they came on in the fourth quarter, outscored the Wizards by 11, held them to 13 points in the fourth quarter, you know, stepped up the defense. Can't ask for more than that. 13 points in the fourth quarter. That's like the old Knicks in the 90s, right? But you gave up 100 through the first three. That's not going to get it done. You can't win basketball games giving up over 90 points, which they've routinely done through three quarters in basketball games this year. At some point, hold teams in the 80s at least. That's not asking too much, and realistically, even below that, you know. So, you know, through three quarters. But routinely this year they have given up, you know, 85, 90, and that game 100 points through three quarters before they step up the defense in the fourth quarter and say, hey, you know what, we might not be able to win this game if we don't start playing defense. And at that point, it's just too much to overcome. They just don't learn their lesson with that. You know, that's one of the things with Hornacek. I never really thought that he was such a defensive-minded coach in Phoenix. It was more of an offensive-minded approach, and that was one of the reasons I thought the Knicks should have gone after Thibodeau or somebody like that. You know, it was more defensive-minded.
Yeah,
and
we talked about that too. I remember.
Yeah, and bringing Hornacek here, I think, you know, this is exactly what I thought they were going to get. They're going to score. The offense is going to be fine, but give up too many points makes it tough to win.
Is the Hornacek criticism real out there in New York? Is that a real thing?
I think the patience might be wearing a little bit thin. You know, when like I said, you know, earlier in the year, everything was clicking and working right. Everything he kind of touched was working out okay. They were 14-10. They're 5-16 now since then, and he's doing a lot of the same things, but not having the same results. And whenever that happens, especially in a market like New York, people's patience is their patience is gonna run thin. So I think you're starting to see a little bit of that now. And there's nothing like, you know, there's nothing like last year with Derek Fisher where people just knew he had to go. I think it's more on Kurt Rambis right now. People are more like, well, get Rambis out of here. He's obviously not helping the defense out at all. He's only here because he's Phil's buddy. But I haven't heard that too much or seen that too much with Hornacek so far.
When it comes to the Melo situation, I know you talked about we know this about the Melo, how there's those who love him and there's those that just despise him. And what is what would you say the percentage or the overall lying theme behind Melo and this situation? Because over the last couple of weeks now, he has clearly stated he wants to go somewhere that he wants to contend, or he wants to stay, or he talks to Phil and now he says he wants to stay. And then again, within the last couple of days, he's again retracted saying, you know, I would like to go to a contender. Is he just playing the passive aggressive, you know, marble game or back and forth game with Phil Jackson to just really try and get his way and also stay loyal to the Knicks on the other end?
No, I really think he's been mostly, until very recently, he's been mostly consistent. And most people have kind of tried to think for Melo rather than just listening to what he's actually saying. He's always maintained his whole time here in New York, maybe up until maybe a week ago when maybe the narrative might have changed slightly a little bit. But up until then, he's always maintained that he likes it here. His family's settled here. He loves playing here. I think he values a championship if he could ever get it, which at this point looks very bleak, but who knows. But I think if he believes he can still get that done in his mind, and I think he would value one championship in New York more than a championship anywhere else. I don't think he has in him what someone like Kevin Durant has, where he just says, you know what, I'm going to go play in the best situation I could play in and win a title that way, even though I have a good team here in Oklahoma City. I don't think that's Melo's makeup. I think he's very, very loyal to New York, and really, Knicks fans should be appreciative of that. I think many of them are, but it amazes me how many of them are not, because he's almost as loyal or more loyal than some fans are, and you rarely see that in sports in general today. Usually it's the fans are always more loyal than the players. Yeah. But, I think this last statement where he's saying, and there's reports now within the last few days where he's now apparently open to maybe being traded, and you never really saw that before. That only comes, though, from reports out there that were out in the media saying that, that the Knicks might not want him. So I think that's the only reason he would even say something like that or even consider it. If the Knicks had said, look, Melo, you're our guy, you're staying here, we want you here, there's no thought at all that we want to shop you or trade you here or trade you there, then I don't even think you would hear a word from him out of, I'll even look at the possibility, because that's how much I think he wants to stay in New York and wants to play here and win here if he can. But when the team is, and there are reports out there that may suggest that they are shopping him or might consider moving him, then I think that's where he's trying to look at it and say, well, fine, if the team doesn't want me, then I don't want to be here either. And I think that's the only time, and that's only within the last several days. Right. Up until then, he had been absolutely consistent 100% his whole time here in New York saying, I like it here and I want to stay here. And it's everybody else when the trade deadline rolls around or just before, the month leading up to it like we have right now, every single year when the Knicks are struggling and they have a losing record like they're doing now, where everybody else looks at it and says, well, why wouldn't you want to go somewhere else? He's in a bad situation there. He doesn't need to be there. He should want to win. He should want to go here. He should want to go there. And everyone's putting words in his mouth for him rather than listening to what he's been saying all along. So, I think I don't think ultimately he's going to go anywhere, but, stranger things have happened, and you just never know in his business.
Exactly. Right, exactly. Well, I wanted to get you out of here on one more question about the Knicks, and one of the main ones, I think, for the Knicks moving forward. Is it plausible to think that a guy like Kristaps Porzingis is the headstone of this organization moving forward? Is it the correct thing to say now? Because I remember a year ago we talked about Porzingis and how great he looked for the Knicks early on, and how that team kind of faded, and obviously that narrative went down the drain late in the season. But is it fair to say now, with the way this guy has performed, that he is the building block around the New York Knicks for the future to come?
For the future, yeah, for sure. But just because the timing doesn't work out, it's unfortunate for the Knicks. He's at the beginning of his career while Melo's at the end of his career. So that timing, that which, you kind of have to look at that and say, when Phil re-signed Melo for 5 years, you have to kind of say, well, what was the plan? Because, if you weren't going to be able to build around him and a young guy like Porzingis, obviously didn't have him yet, but once they got him, it was kind of like, well, what do we do now? Because, we kind of put all eggs in the Melo basket here, but and he's kind of tailing off at the end of his career, but now we have this new guy, coming up who's a rookie, at the time last year, and now obviously his second year. His whole thing is, can he stay healthy? He missed some games last year. He's missed some games with the Achilles now this year. That's the main concern with him. If he can stay healthy, obviously we all think he's going to be pretty good, and the sky's the limit. But if he's not healthy, we've seen how that's gone for a lot of guys who we thought, the sky was the limit for, it just didn't work out. So, at this point, second year, Melo in his 14th year, yeah, for sure. He's got to be considered the building block and the cornerstone of the franchise for the future. And then, the one thing that they do have, which they didn't have in the past, is some picks coming up. So maybe you can use that and some other moves, and you can kind of, build around it. But, who knows what Phil's plans are? He's also on a same 5-year time frame that Melo's on. So as the Melo era ends, maybe the Phil era ends. Who knows? Maybe he stays on. We don't know that yet. We'll see. But if he's gone, maybe then that's left up to somebody else. So, it's always something here in New York with the Knicks.
Yep.
We never know how it's going to work out. But for sure, yeah, I think, you got to look at KP. Where the Knicks are right now, they're obviously not contending this year. Next year, we don't know. they have cap space, they'll have picks, so there's room and there's things they could do, which wasn't always the case for the Knicks in past years. But if that doesn't work out in the Melo era, then yeah, for sure, I think KP, as long as he can stay healthy, is going to be the building block of the future.
Yeah, Johnathan, thank you so much for coming on. I am excited as all get up, as you know, for college basketball. For those of you that don't know, last year on the Friday of the first weekend of basketball, we did a show where we literally were on the air like 5 minutes after Cincinnati had that tip-in and after TCU hit that game winner from about half court. And we were like, me and Andrew Norris and Johnathan were like, we don't even know what the hell just happened. And we're here on the radio trying to give it to you as it's all finishing up at the buzzer. I mean, that was one of my favorite moments going through this process of being on the Hoopers log to this point. But Johnathan, we'll get you on the show again sometime later on in the future. But man, we got to talk more often, man.
Yeah, man, keep in touch. Yeah, it's always good to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We'll have you on some other time. Hey, thank you again for coming on, Johnathan. We'll be back on the other side. We'll have a conversation piece with Mark and I. Thank you again, Johnathan.
All right, take care.
Hell no, but you know it ain't all about wealth. As long as you make a note to spread the share. Spread the share.
Whether it's a monster dunk,
LeBron James with no regard for human life.
an insane shot,
Westbrook. Thank you. You gotta be kidding.
the greatest block of all time,
Back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James.
or another crazy Curry dagger.
Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry.
The Lead has you covered. Go to NBALead.com now.
In sports, 5 games were featured in hockey action last night.
Every year, millions of people rely on portable generators when they lose access to electricity. But some of them don't understand that a portable generator's carbon monoxide emissions can kill if their generators are used indoors. So we're here to clear the air. Always take your generator outside, away from windows and doors. When you take it outside, you distance yourself from the dangers of carbon monoxide. For more safety tips, visit TakeYourGeneratorOutside.com.
Welcome on back to the show, everybody. Again, episode 23 here on the Hoopers log. Man, I miss Johnathan, man. It's been some time since I talked to that cat, man. It's been some time.
Yeah, sorry, I was muting and playing music all at the same time, so I couldn't get to a mic fast enough. But I thought it was good. Thought it was good, man.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I mean, he's one of those guys that's going to give you a really honest, straight shoot opinion. He's one of those guys that's in the Garden, Madison Square Garden, on a pretty regular basis, and he knows what's up with the New York Knicks and obviously a lot around what goes on in small town college basketball. So he's just fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting what he said about Kristaps Porzingis. I don't know. I'm a huge KP fan. I think he is amazing, and I have several shirts to prove it, which is weird. but yeah, I think it was interesting what he said about with KP and Melo. You know, with him being at the beginning and Melo being at the end. I think he's right. It's just a lot of unfortunate circumstance for the Knicks, because if you'd have had Kristaps and Melo in their prime, I think it's a totally different situation and totally different ballgame.
Yeah, it's a fluctuating circumstance in New York, and it's tough because, I mean, it's so funny because we had these conversations, Johnathan and I, back last year about how they're just a dumpster fire second half of the season, and first half they were great, and then they just fell off the map, and it's frustrating because again we're in that loop of, hey, is the coach going to work again, and is this so.
Right.
I want to see the Knicks succeed more than anybody, because that place in Madison Square Garden is just, I mentioned it on the show before, it's just absolutely sensational. But speaking of events that happened over the weekend, one of the best games of the weekend period was the Cavs and Spurs. You talk about a fantastic way to start off the ABC showcases for ESPN. Cavs and Spurs was sensational. Look, I was saying it multiple times on my Twitter. Look, can I get 7 of those in June? I mean, I don't care who's playing. I just want 7 of those type of games. And if we do, and it goes down to the wire every single time with 2 of the best players in the game on both sides, I'm good to go. Mark, what did you see in that game? It was sensational.
I didn't watch. I watched the last probably 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. I was watching.
Then you're good.
Yeah, I was watching the Grizzlies Houston game, which is unfortunate on a many levels. But I flipped over after that got done and got to watch the rest of it. I thought it was really good. I thought that Kawhi going against LeBron offensively is probably not the best. I think that LeBron's too big. I think he's too muscular. I don't think that he's going to be able to score as effectively as he probably would be on a different person. So I think that's going to be interesting to see if they continue to guard Kawhi with LeBron or if they try to move him around. Yeah. It was a really good game. The last few minutes was really good. That dagger that LeBron hit was just crazy, man. It was just
Lord.
It was
that was like Gilbert Arenas, man.
Yeah, I mean, he just like, you know what? Because Kevin Love wanted zero part of that game-winning shot, that 3-pointer. He wanted zero part of it, and so it was like pass to LeBron or pass to Kevin Love. No hot potato, and LeBron's like, you know what? F this. I'm just going to shoot this, and he did, and it was impressive. So I thought it was good. I thought the last play they lost on was LeBron got a lot of criticism for it, but it really wasn't his fault.
No.
So that's unfortunate. Even after that, though, they still had another chance to get the ball back, which is crazy after they missed a couple free throws. And, look, Kevin Love was just not good. I mean, he was not good. And I know people gave the Cavs a bunch of crap for Kevin Love being wide open, but there's a reason for he's wide open because they're not worried about him. They were not worried about Kevin Love at all. They're worried about LeBron James and Kyrie Irving making a shot because LeBron just hit a 3 to put it in overtime. So I can understand how Kevin Love got loose because you're not looking at him. You're not looking for him. You're not looking for all the main guys. And so to the Spurs' credit, they let him shoot, and he shot up a big old air ball, and that dude straight up ran out of the arena. Did you see that? Like, did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
He just straight up ran out.
Oh, yeah. No, he was done.
It's awesome, but also kind of shitty. Like, at least go shake Pop's hand. He's the greatest coach there is in the game. I mean, at least
that was cool when LeBron and Kyrie walked up to Pop at the end of the game, and Pop was like, "Yeah, you guys are unbelievable. Congrats for winning the title." I was sweet. That was cool.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too. I thought it was a good game. I'm with you. I don't think we're gonna get 7 of those, but I would take it in a heartbeat. Yeah. It was a really good game. I think it's a really good matchup. I think most people would agree we'll take 7 of those in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one thing that needs to be just harpooned immediately is anybody, and I mean anybody, who says that Kawhi Leonard is a system player needs to get off that bandwagon immediately. This guy now offensively is one of the elite scorers in the league. I know it was one game of 40 points, but it's been 6 straight 30-plus point performances. I haven't seen this type of output from any Spur in my life, but I've also haven't seen anyone of, I've seen Kevin Durant do some things with scoring the basketball. Right. I've seen Steph. I've seen LeBron. But from the standpoint of what Kawhi is now doing on the offensive side of the floor, he is turning into one of the elite top-tier players in the game. And I'll even debate he's a top 5 player right now. He's been sensational.
Do you think the last 6 games, do you think that's because Pop is forcing him to step up, or that's just him realizing that we have to score more?
I you know what? That is an unbelievable question, and I could talk about it for about 3 hours, but I think it comes down to the Spurs are adjusting right now in the dog days of the basketball season, where I think the defense is a little bit more lax. I think Pop is sitting there saying, "Look, we're tired. We know we're trying to just drag our butts to the All-Star break. Kawhi, go out there and just do your thing and score what you do." He put up 30 shots in that game against the Cavs. He's the only guy to do more than 14 shots. LaMarcus put up 14 shots, and Kawhi put up 30. That doesn't happen for the Spurs very often. I think they're just trying to find a way to muster out some offense, and the best way to do so is just let Kawhi run loose. So I think that's the main reason for this 30-point spurt. I don't think it's going to be a normality, obviously, but I think from the standpoint of situation as of right now, I think that's just what Pop's saying, hey, just go out and do it, man.
Yeah, I think going forward, though, I think that, not maybe this year, but going forward and years to come, I think that's going to have to become the norm for Kawhi. I think he's going to be their franchise cornerstone, and he's going to have to be that. And much like Marc Gasol, I just talk about it because I just equate the same thing, but much like Marc Gasol, they have to have him step up, and it's not something he's necessarily normal. He's not a normal kind of guy who's just going to be in the star kind of light, and that's not how he envisions basketball at all. And Kawhi's kind of the same way. He's just out here to play basketball. He's out here to play the best basketball he can. But I think that the Spurs are going to have him step up if they want to continue to play at an elite level, and I think they will. I really don't have any fear of the Spurs ever dropping off as long as Pop is their coach. But he's going to have to continue to step up like that. And if he is playing at that level, I think they are a serious contender going into the West. And I know you mentioned earlier, Pau Gasol broke his finger. I don't even think that's a problem. Honestly, I think I texted you this or something. I don't know what we were talking about. I told you I think you're good. I think the Spurs are good without Pau. I don't think he was, he wasn't doing much anyway. So, but with Kawhi playing, if he continues to play like he's done the past 6 games, scoring 30 points, that's a different ball. That's a different team than what they started the year. That's for sure.
Well, and the other thing that's scary is Tony Parker has been injured, and Tony Parker is a shell of himself now. He just is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But he totally is now. It's not even a debate. It's obvious. It's obvious on a nightly basis now. It's just that's the way it is. But the roles that they're willing to he's willing to sacrifice to do that with. Look, 10 years ago, the San Antonio Spurs won a championship. I know they beat the Cavs. The Cavs were a very bad finals contender that year, but they had depth at the point guard position that year. That was Tony Parker's prime year. They had Beno Udrih, and they also had George Hill off the bench, who's a starting point guard for the Utah Jazz. That was some serious depth. The way Dejounte Murray played on Saturday night, 7 of 10 from the field. He put up some floaters. He was aggressive. He played his brand of basketball, 6 assists. He played within the system. Look, if Dejounte Murray steps up and plays his game and Patty Mills keeps doing his thing and Tony Parker could just be one of those guys that comes in for 10, 15 minutes off the bench, you've got yourself a very, very scary depth point guard position there for the San Antonio Spurs. And then once Pau Gasol comes back and everyone's in flow, I'm telling you, man, I don't think they're going to win the title or get close. But they might just sneak into the Western Conference Finals and really do some serious damage and contend with a team like Golden State, Memphis, you name it, Utah. They have got some serious weapons there. So I think that's a real contending thing there for the San Antonio Spurs. And before I let you say something else, Kawhi Leonard had 30 shots on Saturday. And here's the craziest thing. We think of Kyrie Irving as a volume shooter as a point guard. He only put up 22 shots on Saturday night, and Kawhi put up 30. So that just gives you an idea.
Well, I think that's a mistake.
Of how
that's a mistake. I mean, Kyrie's he should not be shooting that many shots. Him and LeBron should be taking the majority of the shots on the team, period.
Right.
Sorry.
LeBron only put up 16. LeBron went 11 of 16 from the field. Look, Kawhi, you can tell you what.
That's a problem for LeBron, too. There's no granted, he's super efficient, but he's got to put up more shots than that.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. 29 points off 16 shots. He's got to do better than that. I 100% agree with you on that perspective. But, again, efficient. I mean, if you're going to go 11 of 16, I mean, Kawhi's defense is sensational. But like you said, they're going to have to figure out a way to get up on LeBron and find a way to keep him from actually going off for 25. Because let's just say, for example, these two teams do meet in the finals. LeBron ain't going to put up 16 shots. He's going to put up 40. That's just what he does. Yeah. He will go off and be the individual assassin that we know he can on that side of the basketball court for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
So should Tony Parker be playing 25 minutes a game?
No, not anymore. Not anymore. He's done. He is done with that. And as a Spurs fan, I'm going to sit here and tell you he can start in the postseason, but it's going to be one of those things where he's going to start for the first 6 minutes, come off the bench the rest of the way, and maybe get you like 6 to 8 minutes a game because you got to rely on Dejounte Murray and Patty Mills to take you through the course at this point because you will not win a title with Tony Parker and Patty Mills by themselves. Dejounte Murray has to be that new X factor.
I think you got to keep Tony Parker for the last. It's a game in the playoffs where you need someone like Tony Parker in the last 3 minutes.
Yes, of course.
In the last 3 minutes where you need good decision making, you need a good shot, you need the offense to be ran correctly. I think that's where Tony Parker's going to come in very handy. I think it's one of those things. It's the veteran. It's the old veteran who doesn't really play a lot during the season, but
like Paul Pierce,
doesn't play a lot in the season, but he holds on to it. And in the playoffs, he's playing his minutes are up a little bit because it's the playoffs. You need him in late game situations. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I think that Tony Parker is better saved for the playoffs.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like I said, he'll come in and play maybe 20 minutes a night in the playoffs if needed. Obviously, if they're playing well, he won't. But either way, the Spurs, with the way Dejounte Murray played, it really opens up a lot for them moving forward. I wanted to talk about this, too. LeBron James called Greg Popovich the greatest of all time. Look, I love Greg Popovich with the best of them as a Spurs fan. I'll be a homer all day, but look, you cannot just sit back there. And I know what he was doing. I know he was throwing shade at a guy like Phil Jackson. I understand that narrative, but you also got to look at Red Auerbach, a guy who just completely changed the narrative of coaching. You also got to look at a guy in Pat Riley who was sensational with a guy like Magic Johnson for the Lakers in the mid-80s. And then 20 years later, to bring Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal a championship in Miami. He is one of the greatest just overall basketball minds ever. And I know Pop is, in my opinion, he is on the Mount Rushmore of coaches. But to just throw Auerbach and Riley and Phil Jackson and other names that I haven't mentioned under the bus just to say Pop's the best, I find that a little bit disrespectful. What do you think, Mark?
I think that hold on, I'm looking something up. I think that.
Yeah.
I don't think I necessarily disagree with him. I think that
sure.
I think you have to look at the fact that Greg Popovich has done what he has done with a myriad of players, a myriad of injuries. Every injuries happen teams every year. So I think you have to look at the overall record. I mean, they've had 50-win seasons for how many years now? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they've made the playoffs for like something like 20 straight years or something just insane, and like no other team has done that. So it's just it's insane what he's done over his career. Now, I can agree that maybe some of the other coaches could be in the conversation, but I think that I probably agree with LeBron. I think that Pop is probably the best of all time, just for the simple fact that he has done it no matter what players he's had, no matter what injuries he's had to deal with, no matter what was going on, he's always seemed to find a way to win. And win consistently, and that is so hard to do in the NBA with turnovers, with contracts, with free agents leaving. I mean, to get a player and players to play for you for that long and still buy into your system, no matter the age, no matter the veteran, no matter the player, that is what's impressive. And he still continues to do it and win at a high level.
It's just hard for me because I mean, I've grown up watching this man just do his job as a coach, and it's hard for me because, like, he didn't do it in the biggest market. He didn't do it with the biggest pressure underneath him. He didn't do it with, I mean, like, there's just so many things where, like, he didn't win back-to-back titles. He's still obviously success in the regular season is unquestionable. I will always say he's the greatest regular season coach ever. But from the standpoint of when you get into the postseason, yes, his teams are competitive, his teams do well, but he also lost the first-round series back in 2011 against the Grizz. You know who that is. You saw that.
No,
I was there. I was upset when that
I can
happened.
see that. I mean, postseason has to do with it.
Sure.
And rings is always going to be something that people use as a comparative tool, and I think that's probably misguided. You know what I mean? Like, I think I heard someone say this, like, if you want to talk about rings, Robert Horry has like 6 rings or 5 rings, so he's the greatest player ever. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so I think rings is a good measurement, but I don't think that should be the end all be all of yes, he won however many championships, so he's the greatest. Period. So for me, I think that we have to take into account. I think the regular season is a thing. I mean, being a regular season coach is a thing. You still have to get your players and get your team to the postseason to be able to have a chance. I think you still have to take that into consideration.
He's literally Nick Saban in the regular season. Like he will go as hard in the regular season as he does in the postseason. That is just Greg Popovich. But for me personally, to put him at number 1, this is what he would have to do, and that would be win a title after the post-Tim Duncan era. If he can win a title with this newly constructed roster, with the aging and the just shell of themselves Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, and obviously aging Pau Gasol, who wasn't even a part of this team for the last 20 years. What I'm trying to say is if he can win a championship in that realm, that's when I say, yes, he's the best ever. Because that's when you're like, this isn't just him, winning games and winning titles with the best players, the best power forward of all time. This is him implementing a system that can withstand the test of time, like LeBron was saying, but also from the standpoint of saying, look, I can do it without the greatest power forward of all time, and I can develop a kid from San Diego State who no one thought was going to do anything other than be a defensive dynamo. That would be a big-time statement and something that would be really tough to dispute for years and years to come.
I can understand that, and I can see Phil Jackson's probably the other guy that I struggle with. That's why I was talking about rings, because Phil Jackson always comes to mind. And for the record, I think Phil Jackson is actually the winningest coach of all time by percentage. He won at a 70% clip. So it's just not much better than Greg Popovich is at 67%. So it's not a huge difference. But yeah, I mean, and you look at that and you're like, the teams that Phil had and the teams that Greg had, are they comparative? I don't know. So I mean, I think it's kind of a toss up right now. I think you got to bring up a good point. Win one post Duncan, and people can't say, oh well, it's because you had Tim Duncan. Yeah, well, it was because you had basically nobody and still won at the time.
Exactly.
I mean, you know what I mean? And Kawhi Leonard's not a nobody, but when people see that team, that name doesn't stick out. If it's just an average fan reading that roster, Kawhi Leonard doesn't stick out. Tim Duncan does.
Yes. Exactly. No, you're 100% correct, and that's where I lay on there. Hey, I wanted to say this, something I wanted to ask Johnathan this, but I thought it was ironic that Klay Thompson, I believe it was prior to the Oklahoma City game, he had some family problems that came up, and he actually addressed his team, told what was happening, did what he was supposed to do, and he didn't have any drama. He came back even to play, but if he didn't play, we all would have understood what would have happened.
You mean he didn't disappear?
No, yeah, he didn't disappear. He actually showed up and did his job. I know. Amazing, right? What a concept.
It is crazy if you just said, you know what's going on? I got shit to handle. I'll be back. Yeah, I saw that too. And I thought the same thing you thought. That's crazy because all you have to do is just pick up the phone. And it's a situation where Derrick Rose doesn't want to be in New York anymore. Doesn't like his role, doesn't like his minutes, doesn't like what's going on. You know, and the reality of that is if he was winning, if the Knicks were winning, he would love it there. Probably, more than likely, he would love it there. Winning cures all in the NBA, in any sport, really. So, yeah, I think that's kind of a shady deal for Derek, but shady has never really been something he would shy away from. So,
yeah, no, I agree, and but it was fascinating that I saw that, and I wanted to ask Johnathan that, but I love Johnathan, but I know he's a talker. He'll even admit that. But anyway, the game between Oklahoma City and Golden State, you saw Zaza Pachulia and Russell Westbrook get into it. What was your take on that? I thought it was fascinating to see Zaza just stand over him. And Stephen A. Smith brought up a great point that I thought was fantastic to bring up as well. When everybody was around when Zaza Pachulia did what he did for that split second, all the Oklahoma City guys did was say, hey, back off, let's just pick up Russ. Nobody got into an altercation. What does that say about Russell Westbrook and his hold on the actual team? I mean, that's all you got to see right there is that 2-3 second of interaction between Zaza and Russell Westbrook and the interaction between his teammates coming back to him. Does he not have hold of the locker room, or is this just something I'm blowing out of proportion, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I really wouldn't read that much into it. I mean, I get what you're saying. I think it's probably a difference of teammates.
Sure.
If that were I don't know, if that were Mike Conley, I mean, there'd be a problem. Tony Allen and Zebo would be trying to fight somebody, but that's just who they are. That's just who they are. So, Oklahoma City's got a lot of fake tough guys. There's not a lot of guys on there that's willing to probably throw down.
The Clippers.
They got a lot of fake tough guys, but I really wouldn't. I think we're probably overanalyzing that. I think they probably generally want to play for Russ and like playing with Russ. I thought it was impressive that Russ said something after the game, though, that he called him out, and that Zaza, went right back. So for me, I'm all for it. I like good stories. I am always rooting for a good story in the NBA. You know what? Next time the Thunder and the Warriors play, I'm going to watch. And you know why? Because I want to see if Zaza and Russ get into it, because it's a damn good story. So
it is.
I'm always rooting for a good story in any sport. That's why I watch. That's why we all watch. So I thought it was fun. I thought it was impressive that Zaza even began to do it. I think he's been to get a little bigger than he probably really is. He got into someone tonight too. I was browsing Twitter when you were on the interview. I can't remember who it was, but he got into someone else tonight too and got into it again with someone different. So Zaza's out here trying to make trouble. I'm all for it though. It makes the NBA interesting.
It does. It makes things interesting and it makes things fun. And another guy that went off, we mentioned Kawhi Leonard and his 41-point performance on Saturday, but Kevin Durant in that game. Look, hey, if Kevin Durant plays the Oklahoma City Thunder in the playoffs, he might break all the records when it comes to like stats. Because that dude, I think he only missed like 2 shots against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He had 40 points and like 13, 14 rebounds or something like that. Dude went off in that game, and I'm telling you, KD's going to be in that conversation for MVP races for time to come. Some funny things before we get on out of here. We've gone a little long on the show, but some funny things before we get out of here. Now, we're speaking of Greg Popovich. I don't know if any of you saw. I think it was Friday or Saturday night. Oh, it had to have been Friday night, if not Thursday. Manuel Mudiay, Greg Popovich, got a little upset at the referees. And what did he do? Emmanuel Mudiay, as Greg Popovich is getting thrown out of the game, Emmanuel Mudiay just hangs out and throws him out right at the same time. I thought it was great. You know what? Look, as much shade as Pop will get sometimes on occasion just for fun, I thought that was fantastic. And I thought that was one of the funniest things I've seen because, you know, as we all know, Greg Popovich can get a little over the top just from his team. It's not based on refs or whatnot. He's trying to motivate his team or do something, and Emmanuel Mudiay just fed right into it. I thought it was great, Mark.
Yeah, I saw that come across on Twitter when I was just watching it. I thought it was hilarious, and Mudiay's response after the game was just, you know, it was all in fun. It was all in good fun. It was all in jest. I don't think he was trying to get under Pop's skin as anything, but I thought it was really funny. Just for the fact that he threw him out or he gave him a tee just like the refs did. So he's just giving the refs the assist. That's all it is. I thought it was good. It goes back to, it makes the game interesting. Things like that are what we watch the game for, along with the teams. But we really, that's why I watch. I want good stories. I want to be able to go into the game knowing look for something. And next time the Spurs and Emmanuel Mudiay played, that's something that people will look for. So I thought it was hilarious. I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too. And one thing that also, you talk about being at the bottom, as far as at the bottom as you can be, the Los Angeles Lakers lost on Sunday, the biggest loss in franchise history by 49 points. And ironically, it was the 11-year anniversary of Kobe Bryant putting up 81, and the Lakers couldn't even score 81. Isn't that sensational?
It's sad. How the mighty have fallen. It is sad. It's also impressive. I won't say it's that impressive because the Grizzlies lost by 50 last year, maybe. So we'll see. I'm not going to sit here and say it was that impressive because I've been there. I've been on the losing side of that, and it's not fun. But it really doesn't surprise me with their roster. I think Luke Walton's a good coach. But as we've discussed this in this podcast numerous times, you can be a good coach and have a crappy team and a crappy record. You can only go so far as your roster can take you, and he's doing. I think he's doing really good for what he has to work with. Ain't much.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the only guy off that team right now that has any promise is Julius Randle. I think he's the only guy on that squad that has a chance at being an all-star in this league. But outside of that, everyone else is kind of flowing into this. The Swaggy P effect. They're just getting sucked into the tunnel of garbage that he's provided for that team. It's unfortunate and it's sad.
Right. Well, there's not much there. As far as there's Julius Randle, D'Angelo Russell, and then a bunch of kind of role players. Legit starting quality people on that team that you would take off to put on your own team. I think for me, I would only take Julius Randle, and that's probably it. Yep. To be honest with you, like as a legit quality starting player. I would put Julius Randle, and because I love Julius Randle, I love his game. I think it's excellent. So I would take him and put him at the power forward. But other than that, I don't really care for anybody else. So
who else you grabbing? Right, exactly.
There's a bunch of role players. Yeah. So if you're playing a bunch of role players against a bunch of starters every night, that's gonna happen.
Which is it's a great concept. It's kind of like the Celtics. It's an unbelievable concept. The problem is you got to get a go-to guy, and I don't see an Isaiah Thomas or a Kobe again walking through a prime Kobe walking through that door to help this team get to that next level anytime soon.
There's always going to be a time whenever your offense is stalling and staggering, and you just got to get a bucket. You got to get a bucket. You got to get buckets quickly. So there's always going to be a guy that, when you're struggling, when your offense is off the rails, you can just throw it to him and know he's going to get you a bucket. Like you said, Kobe, Isaiah Thomas, those guys. Nobody exists on that team.
Maybe the Knicks could just be a bunch of jerks and just give Melo to the Lakers. That would be screwed up, wouldn't
just
it?
Mean.
One last thing before we get out of here. Bosch is talking about potentially maybe going to the Bulls if he gets bought out by the Heat. What's your thoughts?
I don't really think it moves the needle that much. I don't know. If he does, great. I don't know if it really does anything for the Bulls. I don't really if it does anything for Chris Bosh other than gives me a paycheck. So he probably is saying that because that's probably the only people who've shown interest. But I don't think it moves the needle at all for me. I don't think he'll play. So if and when that does happen, then we can discuss it. Other than that, I don't think it really is. I think it's irrelevant at the moment.
I am in the same boat. I wanted to bring it up, though, because I saw it run through my feed, and I was like, I don't know if that guy ultimately
I think they're wasting a roster spot. I don't think the guy's going to play, and they could probably pick up somebody else that would benefit them better than Chris Bosh would. And that's not offensive to Chris Bosh. That's just the medical evaluation of it. I don't see I just don't see him coming back. And if he does, how effective is he really going to be? He's been away from the game for so long. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I said it in the off season before we came on for the regular season. I said he should just retire. I mean, it's just a circumstance where health wise, it's just that where he's at. Well, anyway, that's our show for today. Episode 23 is in the books. Thank you again for listening, everybody. Our next episode is episode 24 on Thursday, January 26, 2017. Follow us on social media at NBA Lead and also at the Hoopers Log for this show in particular. And stay up to date on everything NBA and our show there on those feeds as well. Also go to NBALead.com, also our sponsor and Fan Essential. Follow them as well and get to that as well. And also just go to fanessential.net. They got some really sweet stuff and some sick stuff to get used to as well there on that. Follow myself at The Real Chris M13 and follow Mark, the producer, at King_producer to keep in contact with us and listen in on our next show. Have a good one, everybody.
This has been the NBA Lead Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at NBA Lead. Find us on the web at NBALead.com or on iTunes.